Alice wrestled with the discomfort from her abdomen and her magic crests. Yeah, we are just conflating crests and circuits.
Well, yeah, I guess so.
You can't have magic circuits without having a crest.
Yeah, I think this is a case where the translation might need a little bit of work.
And with her consciousness holding on by a thread, she took the phone in her hand.
Well, she made it to the booth.
It was unlikely Aoko would be there to pick up. Even so, with the stray dogs gathering around the booth, she had to try. Or, alternate option, close the door to the booth.
Well, I mean, that would help until they break in, but yes.
It would buy her more time.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully she already closed the door.
It was Soujuuro who picked up.
Oh, wait a minute.
What?
Yeah. I thought she sounded injured when she called Soujuuro the first time.
Alice knew she was better off just hanging up, but his name slipped out of her mouth. After pausing and fighting with herself for some time, an image of the innocent boy came to mind, and she hung up. Her instincts had worn out. She couldn't let him get involved.
Huh.
And not just because he was an innocent bystander. It was more than that. To Alice, Soujuuro appeared that day because he was merely in the wrong place at the wrong time. Only the lightest of breaths passed her lips. Above her, the moon began to blur. Snow was falling again, so close, yet so far. The dogs began hurling themselves at the phone booth to the chorus of hungry snarls. Thunk, thunk. She took one last deep breath and closed her eyes. Glass. An unusual material for a coffin. But the girl knew in some corner of her mind that she'd made the right choice not to ask the boy for help. Some time passed. A peculiar sight came into view. A field of white flowers. The clear sky was too blue. The flowers so numerous they made the field look barren. The sight was so dazzlingly beautiful she wished she could look away. This was probably all thanks to Father Winter. The cold wind carried a scent of a paradise far removed, untainted by man or beast. It was a glimpse of the fields beyond winter. One could be forgiven for thinking they were the afterlife. Come to think of it, she remembered how funerals were sad, yet always beautiful. And my God, this text on this background.
I know, that, it's hard to read.
She cried. It would be impossible if it wasn't for this, faint black outline they put along the text. She made an incongruous whine, a sound of life. Her breathing was strained and erratic. Hollow and useless was the heart that she once used to fend off pain. It was as though she was in the space between disconnected body and mind. A crying woman and a silent child. High was the sky, deep was the forest, unmoving were the people. No footsteps or voices of salvation came. Who was that looking innocently up at the sky in the stillness? I am wildly confused about the timeline.
I know.
So, she gets there.
Yes.
Gets surrounded by dogs, runs into Touko. Fights Touko, wins, then Touko sicks a dog on her and disembowels her.
Right.
Shoves something down her throat.
To stop her from using magic.
Says, hey, no magic or explode.
You go boom, yeah.
By the way, the puppers are going to eat you bye.
Yeah. She crawls to the phone booth to call Soujuuro.
Ostensibly.
Well,
right?
We saw her bloody...
But then Touko calls Soujuuro from the phone booth.
Well, from a different phone booth, I guess.
Do we know that?
That's what I'm guessing. So, she probably called him not long after Alice did.
Well, you said it was 5 minutes later.
Yeah. It wasn't that long, so Touko probably left the park and used a different phone booth. And she wasn't sure if she wouldn't have known whether or not Alice was able to make a call.
But didn't she lead with, you just got a call from Alice, didn't you?
Yeah, maybe she just guessed Alice would crawl to the phone booth. I mean, I guess that checks out.
When she came to, Alice was going up a familiar hill.
Huh.
The cold night air had all but frozen her hands or feet. She shook, as you'd expect from someone whose abdomen had been torn apart.
Yeah.
Why are you going home and not to the hospital?
Well, Soujuuro probably only knows how to take her home.
She could barely comprehend that she was being carried slowly up Shirinazuka.
Yeah?
Soujuuro had Alice on his back and was silently ascending the slope. His calm eyes seemed to be suffering from the bitter cold.
I bet he didn't take his jacket.
Well, yeah, but now he's got a girl wearing a coat and, soaked in warm blood on his back. So it's got to be warming him up somewhat.
I'm guessing she lost a lot of body heat. So they're probably both freezing.
He didn't seem to be dressed for the time of year.
Yeah.
Not even a coat. His exposed neck and hands were ice cold. Saving your stupid ass. Alice asked, still slumped over his frame. She tried to move, but to no avail. The last thing she wanted was to rest her entire weight on someone else.
Touko-san から電話があった。アリスが危ないって。青崎はともかく、アリスは意地を張りすぎだ。あの状況で助けを呼ばないのはどうかしてる。そりゃ、自分が言っても何もできなかっただろうけど。
Soujuuro spoke with a scolding tone, his eyes kept firmly ahead. His words were directed at himself rather than the girl on his back.
だろうね。けど、これで関係はできた。
Well, I'm involved now.
館に着いたら話してもらうぞ。
I'll explain when we get back.
I might have made an enemy out of Aoko's sister. Just saying.
This is probably my fight too.
Soujuuro focused on climbing the hill. The slope would get steeper from here to the mansion. The thought of Soujuuro climbing this steep hill with her on his back surprised Alice.
降りるわ。もう大丈夫だから。
お腹をむき出しでかい。この方が少しは暖かいよ。
Yeah, your clothes all got torn open.
Might I say, it's a very nice looking stomach.
Wow.
それに、アリスは薪より軽い。山じゃこの程度は朝飯前だから気にしないでくれ。
Carrying you, that's nothing.
Yeah, I just ran my ass off to get there is all.
Running my ass to the park in the space of like 5 minutes.
Somehow.
Yeah, that, however.
Right.
まあ、その意味はなかったんだが。
Oh, the phone booth actually kept her safe, I guess?
なぜ？
俺が着いたら、犬はさっさと散っていった。初めからトウコさんはそういうつもりだったんだ。アリスをどうにかするつもりもなければ、時間制限もなかった。喜ぶべきことなんだろうけど。
Soujuuro said dejectedly.
So it was all just a test to see whether he would choose to get involved or not?
But he was wrong. While Touko didn't want to kill Alice per se, she wouldn't have cared if she'd died.
Well, yeah.
At least that was the way Alice saw it.
I'm sure.
She didn't know how long it took Soujuuro to get to the park, but if he hadn't come, the phone booth would have collapsed and she would be dead. Alice did her best to suppress her thoughts and feelings. She felt silly at the thought of correcting him, and it would matter little anyway. The thought of her trying to thank him was more painful than her open wounds.
もしかして、公園からずっと。
仕方ないだろう。
Yep.
電車終わってたんだから。タクシーを使えばよかったんだけど、 あいにく持ち合わせがなくて。
Also, it would have been pretty hard to explain.
Yeah.
ほんと、今日ほどお金の不便さを思い知った日はない。
For the first time today, Soujuuro let out a sigh. There was no point taking a break. He'd already traveled close to 6 miles like this.
Damn.
Perhaps the fatigue was getting to him. Soujuuro was more upset with his own weakness than the difficulty of the trek.
でもそれを言うならお金の大切さじゃない。
I know what I said.
使えるものがあるのにお金がないだけで使えないんだから、それって不便って言わないか？
Yeah, all these convenient services, but you need money to use them.
The innocence of his question made Alice briefly forget her pain. She too felt distant from the real world. But compared to the boy carrying her, she felt like a regular citizen.
Yeah, she understands the city a lot better than he does.
あなたらしいわ。
Alice smiled to herself. As Alice rested her head, something soft touched her chest.
Cheek.
Yes, sorry. That too. The collar Aoko had given him.
館に着いたら着替えるんだ。お腹の血も拭って、落ち着いたら今で話そう。トウコさんに言わせれば、俺もこれで敵らしいから。
But she's not in a rush to kill you tonight.
With those words hanging in the air, they reached the top of the hill. The gate in the wood stood before them. Beyond it, illuminated by the pale moonlight, stood the mansion. Looking up at it, the girl felt a little disappointed. A natural reaction, yet he couldn't place where her sadness was coming from. Once they entered the mansion, Alice noticed that the only thing here was an open map, and that all her other possessions were gone. Then she slid off Soujuuro's back and walked toward the west wing. The west wing was her domain. However, after only a few steps, she collapsed to the floor.
Alice!
Yep, that's why he didn't let you down.
Soujuuro rushed over to her, but she raised her hand. Her gesture told him he was not to come closer. He stopped in his tracks, a concerned look on his face. Her pale skin gleamed with sweat, her expression uncharacteristically strained.
平気。部屋に戻るぐらいの力は戻ったわ。服を作ろってくるから。あなたはここにいて。すぐに戻ってくるから。そうしたら。
The pained look in Alice's eyes told Soujuuro they would talk later. He knew he couldn't stop her. He reminded himself that she was the one in pain, not him.
それじゃあ、戻ってきたら話を聞かせてくれ。
Alice took a deep breath before slowly disappearing down the corridor. An uneventful 5 minutes passed. Alice returned wearing a fresh set of black clothes, but her complexion remained pallid. With a small sigh, she carefully leaned against a pillar in the foyer and slid down it until she was sitting.
アリス、傷が痛むなら無理せず横になった方がいい。
Yeah, you could lie down on one of the sofas or something.
Soujuuro sat across from her on the cold floor.
傷はもう痛まないわ。横になる必要もない。
Really?
Really?
この体の異常は七かまどを飲まされたせいだから。
Oh.
どうあっても治らないもの。
Okay.
じゃあ、せめて毛布とか。
いいから、気遣いはしないで。ここなら寒さも関係ないから。
She seemed to be telling the truth. Soujuuro remembered Aoko telling him that as long as Alice is inside the mansion, she would be comfortable.
Huh.
あったかいのならいい。それで、七かまどっていうのは。
薬草の一種よ。7回かまどで焼いても燃え残ることから付けられた名前で、紅葉は魔除け。普通の人には良くない程度だけど、私や青子には少し厄介ね。体内での魔力生成そのものに抵抗されてしまうから手の打ちようがない。
Waited out for how long exactly?
Good question.
思っていいのか？
いえ、本来は薬草よ。
Oh, that's the thing about poison and medicine is they're basically the same thing. It just depends on the dosage.
Yep.
今は傷を治すために魔力を使っているから苦しいけど、傷が完治すればおとなしくなるわ。魔術さえ使わなければ七かまども反応しないから。単純な話、七かまどを消化するまで私は役には立たないだけ。
Alice paused. She decided not to say how many days that would take.
別にしずきくんが心配することじゃないわ。こんなの血が流れる程度の痛みだから。
Circulation.
She worked hard to keep her tone calm. Aoko had barely blinked when she was struck in the back, so mages must have an unusually high pain threshold. Soujuuro was surprised and bewildered by what she said. If wounds didn't count as long as the pain wasn't too bad, then nothing would hurt except an injury that killed you.
わかった。話をするのは明日にしよう。今日はとにかく体を休めてほしい。
明日になっても私の容体は変わらないけど。
Yeah, this is going to take a little longer than that.
いいんだ、それでも。アリスはもっと体を大事にしてくれ。
He stood up.
部屋まで送るよ。それとも今で休むか？西館には入ったことはないから、アリスの部屋もわからないし。
ここでいいわ。青子を待たなくちゃいけないから。
Yeah, I guess you have to fill her in.
Alice looked up at the skylight. The moonlight illuminated her pained face. The foyer looked like it belonged to a rundown castle. Only the moon and Alice seemed more vivid than reality. Where did her strength come from? Soujuuro stared at her. Without understanding the significance of Alice's gaze, he turned his gaze to the night sky, powerless as it was. For the third time that night, the silence was broken by the sound of the phone ring. Before Soujuuro could move, a thin shadow bolted across the foyer. By the time he realized it was the weakened Alice, he'd already taken the receiver in her hand.
Aoko.
It was the first time Soujuuro had heard Alice sound concerned. Her tone was infinitely graver than when she was enduring her own pain. Alice's question received only a short response from the voice on the other end. It was a voice more frail than Alice's, like a flickering flame about to turn to smoke.
Dang.
The phone was far from Soujuro's ears, but the words he picked up were very unlike her. Despite saying so little, no, because she said so little, the weight of Aoko's defeat struck Soujuuro hard. Alice silently set the receiver down. Only moments before, her body had been fighting the pain. Now it felt stronger than ever. It was like a scarecrow transforming into a beautiful stone statue. Seeing this, Soujuuro finally understood. Alice's expression when she looked at the moon had come from her trying to accept an immutable reality.
That they lost, I suppose? Oh. Which on the Holy Night won? Dang, are we really wrapping this up kind of soon?
Well...
There might not be a second shelf.
Yeah, we've got, like, maybe 40% of that second shelf left?
Yeah, wow. I mean, when they name a chapter after the book itself, that seems like a finale. Yeah, Witch on the Holy Night, huh? I guess the Holy Night was Christmas?
Presumably.
Yeah.
Aoko had not hung up, but the line remained silent. Alice set down the receiver, quickly put on her mantle, and made for the entrance, moving her injured body by sheer willpower alone. Along the way she paused, then turned to Soujuuro and looked directly at him.
Aokoに何かあったんだな。
Alice hesitated for a moment, before pushing aside her anxiety and grabbing his hand.
しずきくん、一緒に来て。
待ってくれ。一緒にってどこに？
To go save Aoko, you dumb bastard.
Yeah.
間教会まで。
Ida Church.
青子の方はエイリ神父にお願いするしかないから。
Okay, yep, gotta get back to that.
間教会って病院の横にある。
Alright, I've decided we can't deal with this alone. Time to bring in the Catholic Church. Hopefully, this priest has some black keys and is very good at mage killing.
Yeah.
そう。知っているのなら問題ないわね。
Yep.
説明する手間も
Aoko
省
took
けた
him
わ。
there once.
Alice left the mansion and made her way down the tree-lined path. She was clearly determined, but the look in her eyes betrayed her pain.
アリス、連絡をするなら電話は？
Yeah, it is after midnight.
Soujuuro asked Alice, whose grip on his hand was light but unyielding.
教会の人にならもう知らせた。
Oh.
What? How? Are they psychic?
I
もし
guess
かし
they
て
already
病
know
院のこ
about
とを
the
言っているなら
dispute.
それこそ無駄よ。ハイヤーなんて言うけど空を飛ぶわけでもないし、今は助けを呼ぶより助けに行かないと間に合わない。
And you can?
Yeah, wait, can you?
Alice had thought of everything. She turned to the mansion and lightly snapped her fingers.
Oh.
In response, a window opened and countless starlings took flight.
1番隊は索敵。2番隊と3番隊は現場に向かって応急処置を。在庫切れになってもいいわ。
Oh, good. Okay.
まだ生きているなら、青子の心臓を止めないで。
Alice commanded the birds firmly.
しずきくんは裏庭から青子の自転車を持ってきて。
Soujuuro let slip his discomfort at the thought of that thing. A custom-made red bicycle. When he was cleaning the incinerator, Aoko had verbally assaulted him for nearly scratching it.
いいけど、どうするつもりなんだ、アリスは。
ここにいるより、教会にいた方がしずきくんは安全よ。それに、私も急がないといけない。
I'm not going to the church.
しずきくん、
Screw that.
二人乗りできる。
Can he ride it all?
He'd seen others ride tandem and was confident he could do it. Only, it was the bicycle that concerned him. Its frame was so light, Soujuuro wasn't sure it could support both their weights.
二人乗りってことは、アリスが後ろに乗るのか？
できないなら、いいわ。
Ouch.
Alice turned away as if to snub him, then began walking. Unfortunately for Soujuuro, he was now on her bad side.
いや、そういう意味じゃないんだ。アリスとはイメージが合わなかったから。
I'm not saying no, I was
Yeah,
just surprised. Ignoring his pleas, she continued briskly toward the woods. There was no way she was going to ride that bike now.
Oh well.
Sensing her stubborn streak, he desperately called out to her.
待った、今のはこっちが悪かった。すぐに持ってくるから、怒るのはつけにしておいてくれ。
Alice stopped. As soon as he saw her stop, he hurried to the rear courtyard, grabbed the key from where it was hanging, and used it to unlock Aoko's bicycle. By the time Soujuuro brought it back to the front of the mansion, Alice was continuing toward the forest.
Really? I don't know.
Muttering to himself, he straddled the bike. He rested his foot on a pedal. It felt light but sturdy. Confident the bike could support his weight and Alice's, he began pedaling.
Alice!
She turned as he called out to her, before shooting him a piercing glare.
行こう。後ろの荷台に乗ってくれ。でもクッションがないから痛いと思う。辛かったら言ってくれ。止めるから。
私は大丈夫よ。しずきくんが嫌じゃなければの話だけど。
He'd hit the nail on the head. Alice definitely held a grudge over the smallest things.
そういうことなら問題ないよ。アリスが後ろにいてくれるのは嬉しい。それで、行き先は間境界でいいんだな。
Unabashed and undaunted, he plowed on. His tone seemed to ease Alice's mood. She nodded calmly and took a seat on the luggage rack above the rear tire.
手を回すけど、私が触れても平気。
He just carried you up the hill. I think he'll be okay.
ん？大丈夫だよ。体力があるのはさっき証明しただろ。
Besides, not every day you get a cute girl hugging your back.
You know.
Alice silently wrapped her arms around Soujuuro. Once she'd held on tightly enough, he gripped the handlebars.
よかった。
He said quietly.
何が良かったの？
Soujuuro turned to her, an ambiguous expression on his face, and then began pedaling vigorously. He let go of the brakes and the bicycle hurtled down Shiro Inuzuka's steep incline.
A little faster than you thought.
Surprised by the sudden speed, Alice gasped and clutched Soujuuro tighter. She went to protest but stopped when she saw the serious expression on Soujuro's face. Instead, she decided to tighten her grip. Under the night sky, a young girl had put her faith in a young boy. Faster than a roller coaster. I doubt that. The bike hurtled toward Misaki Town Station. Around the station, there was no sight of cars or people. While the town slept under its snowy blanket, two people were racing like the wind. The boy spoke.
本当によかった。二人乗りが思ったより簡単で。
But he was alone in his relief.
Yeah.
It was their first bicycle ride together, and they spent it speeding down an empty highway. The boy's words were lost to the howling wind, unfortunately. That a car crash happened.
I guess he had to brake for a really long time to slow down.
In spite of the late hour, there were still lights on in the church. Originally, the only light at this time of night came from the entrance to the sleepless hospital, ever vigilant and ready to receive patients. However, this was a quiet town with little nightlife. The hospital saw perhaps one emergency patient per night, however, and it was not equipped to handle tonight's sole patient. It was a little before 1 o'clock in the morning. Leaving the bicycle outside, the two headed into the church. With its snow-covered roof, the church looked like it was wearing a white hat that lit up the darkness. In the entrance stood a tall shadow.
Yeah.
The man's voice was placid. Dressed in a long coat, he'd been waiting for Alice.
エイリ神父、Aokoは？
ユイカが見ています。私が駆けつけた時には手遅れでした。
Others, huh?
青崎の家に伝令を願いたいのですが。
Aokoはそれを望まないわ。それに、あちらも今は城に囚われているそうです。今夜の相手は、 真っ先に青子の祖父の動きを封じたようですから。
The two exchanged pleasantries.
Is that what you call it?
Soujuuro didn't move from the foot of the stairs.
おや、そちらは。
Oh yeah, you didn't meet the priest, did you?
Though the father seemed calm, his words had an edge to them. As if to protect Soujuuro from his gaze, Alice stepped between them.
彼は青子の使い魔。契約はまだなされていないけれど。
使い魔ってアリス。
Soujuuro was about to complain, but Alice shot him a fiery gaze. That all but said, just shut up and play along.
そうですか。そのような申告はありませんでしたが、届けが遅れたのは不問としましょう。外部の魔術師と交戦中でしたからね。あなたたちはその撃退を最優先にしたということで。
Alice nodded in thanks.
では通ります。彼の同行を許可しなさい。
ご自由に。私はこれより朝廷に向かいます。管理者が変わるのなら、両教会への資料を用意しなければいけませんので。
Jeez.
ああ、留守中はリツカに任せてありますから。
Right.
必要なものがあれば。
That was the one in the kitchen that baked the bread, right?
I think so, yeah. We didn't actually see them, I don't think.
As if passing the baton, Father Airi exited the church.
Oh.
Soujuuro took 2 full steps back to give him a wide berth.
Very suspicious.
The priest had a dignified air about him. I mean, that might just be tainted by our last experience of a priest
Well,
in
just
the Nasuverse.
the way they do the glasses, it's just to make him look really sketchy.
To put it bluntly, he was strikingly beautiful.
Really handsome dude, I guess, huh?
Oh, damn it, Soujuuro. Straight nose, glistening lips, kissable face. I mean, not a single imperfection on his mildly effeminate face. But that only went as far as his appearance. His manner lacked any hint of softness or grace. Just by looking at him, you could tell he was dependable, like tempered steel, despite being somewhat unapproachable, like tempered steel.
Yeah, I guess so.
The priest disappeared silently into the night, the darkness of his coat overpowering the moonlight. In awe, Soujuuro watched him leave.
なんか仙人みたいな人だな。
In his own way, Soujuuro was expressing affection.
I guess.
For some reason, Father Airi's distant tone made him feel nostalgic.
Reminds him of home, I guess?
Alice gave Soujuuro a deathly stare.
気を許さないで。彼は教会の人間。
Yeah. We only make loose alliances.
私たちを監視する側だけど、今回は彼の手を借りるしかなかっただけ。許されるなら、真っ先に消えてほしい人間だから。
Stupid priest. Satan plays by his rules. Her curse ringing in the air, Alice placed her hand on the doors to the chapel. They were twice her height and who knows how heavy. It didn't look like she could open them anytime soon. Soujuuro climbed the stairs 3 at a time and helped Alice push the towering doors inward.
Okay.
The dim light of the chapel brought with it the familiar scent of burning oil. The ecclesiastical altar was breathtaking.
Interior.
That too.
Yeah.
I was really expecting altar after ecclesiastical.
I know.
The tall ceiling, the stained glass windows on every wall, it all felt intended to illustrate the presence of the Holy Spirit within those chambers. Like the foyer in the Kuonji estate, there was not a single heater. The bitter cold made the chapel feel more severe.
Ah-chan, こっちよ.
Oh look, it's
Acha.
Hanazawa!
Yeah. Acha, huh?
Archer.
No, like Achan, like...
Acha!
Well...
The gentle voice echoed through the chapel, incongruous to its surroundings. It was the voice of a woman,
リツカさん。
Oh.
Alice made her way past the rows of pews toward the front altar. Soujuuro closed the large doors and hurried after her.
早かったわね。これから迎えに行こうと思ったのに。
Okay.
使える足があったから。後ろの彼。足って、あれ？
He pedaled the bike, you see.
Soujuuro showed himself, surprising the woman. They stared intently at each other, wondering what the other was doing here.
知り合い？
Yeah. Alice is like, he knows another girl? What the fuck?
Why does this boy know many girls?
Yeah.
ああ、うん。まずいことに知り合い。宗十郎さん、引っ越したって話だけど、もしかしてあっちゃんのところに下宿してるの？
Soujuuro nodded. Alice turned visibly sour at this unexpected development.
Oh.
どういうこと？しずきくん、リツカさんとはどういう関係？
I was cleaning windows.
関係って、そうね。お魚屋さんでしょっちゅう割引してもらったり、荷物持ちを頼んでみたり、たまにお茶飲んだりする主婦の友みたいな。
The guy at the market that just helps her out all the time. I guess he's seen her since then?
リツカさん結婚していないでしょ。
Needless to say, Soujuuro was also not a housewife's best friend, and all that suggested, but there were more urgent matters at hand.
うわ、そこを突っ込むのか。あっちゃん、私にだけは一切妥協がないのはどうかと思うの。
Could you, like, pick a different name for her that doesn't sound as much like Archer?
Well,
リツカさんの場合、どこまで本気かわからないから。おかしなところは全部追求しておかないといけないだけよ。
Well, I guess we know if Soujuuro ever becomes a servant, he's going to be a rider?
yeah.
On account of the bike thing?
Yeah, bike skill.
あら素敵。仲のいい姉妹みたいね、私たち。
How do you figure?
じゃあ、その信頼に応えて本当のこと言うと、彼とは町内会の顔見知りよ。スパイ行為とかそういうんじゃないし、そもそもそんな器用な人じゃないでしょ、宗十郎さんは。
Do?
本当？
Alice looks skeptical.
Alice stared straight at Soujuuro. Sorry.
Soujuuro.
Alice stared straight at Soujuuro. Let him know she was mad at him for hiding this from her. Who the hell's Soujuuro?
本当だ。魚屋でバイトしてる時に知り合った人だ。
Okay, you did meet her there, huh? No.
前に親切にしてもらったんで、お礼にイワシを一匹サービスしたら、それ以来ごひいきに。
So like a cat, she just sort of clung to you because you gave her free food?
そうそう。商店街で買い物してれば、嫌でも宗十郎さんとは顔見知りになるわ。あっちゃんも怒るぐらいなら買い物に来ればいいのに。密かな商店街のアイドルです、彼。
Alice doesn't really do her own shopping, so
well,
she
no,
misses
she has a
things like this.
Soujuuro for that.
Yeah.
アイドルとは人気者という意味で、値切りやすいかもって意味じゃないよ
うな。
His apparent popularity would have to be questioned another time. Collecting herself, Alice focused on the door in the recesses of the church.
リツカさんの事情は知りませんが、彼は青子の連れです。その他に説明はいりますか？